Welcome to Watercolor and Collage, and the image is Misty Woods. This is an image that I painted this image some time ago, but I wasn't happy with the outcome. So I left it aside, put it aside, and then I decided to make a collage out of it. So this is the original image, and it just didn't have any spark or brightness to it, and I wasn't sure what to do with it at the time. So I created this collage using sheet music and brown tissue paper, and then did some more watercolor painting over the top. And now I'm really happy with the way it's come out. It's got some depth and spark and beauty, and really happy with it. So let's get started with my first watercolor collage video tutorial. And here I've cut out some sheet music and torn some strips of brown tissue paper. And here's my sheet music book that I got from a secondhand store. And I take the sheet music and cut it so the music is in the middle of the tree. And then I will place it. So I also want to have some bends in the tree where the tree bends. So I kind of splice it and then join it together on the paper. So I lay it down on the paper to work out the composition I like. Then I use an old brush and Elmer's glue, and sometimes I put the glue on the item that I'm going to collage, and as you see as this goes along, I then change to putting it on the paper. I think it's easier if you put it on the paper, but or both maybe. You'll have to find your happy place there. So anyway, so here I am putting the glue down and applying it to the back, and paying attention to, again, to the composition as I go forward with this, and see how I'm splicing that to make a bend in that tree. Now I'm moving to the second one, and I have first of all one behind, so it's smaller. It's going to be a little bit further in the background, and apply the Elmer's glue. There may be a better glue, but this seems to work for me. And remember, this one is going behind the one that's in the foreground. This is in the background, and here's the one in the foreground that goes over it. Try not to get too much of the glue outside of where the collage is going to be, because it's sometimes difficult to apply watercolor paint to where the glue is. And then again, I splice this one to create another bend in the tree. So make sure you press down the paper, because sometimes it wrinkles a little. Usually it dries flat, but you have to be aware of that. Now moving to the other side in front of the birch trees that I painted, and now I'm putting another birch tree with the sheet music in front of those. So this will become the foreground, and those birch trees that I painted with watercolor will recede into the background, or maybe even the midground. And I'm doing the sheet music birch trees first, because the brown tissue paper will become the foreground. And here's the strip of brown tissue paper, and as you can see, I'm working out where the best composition might be. And now we're going to move to the brown tissue paper, placing it on the paper. I usually use the glue. I put the glue on first, and then I'm gluing over the top of it just to make sure that the edges are glued down. And that first one that I placed is kind of in the background. It's a little smaller. This next one that I'm placing is going to be wider, larger. And I'm going to, as you will see, place the Elmer's glue right directly on the paper with my old brush. It washes out, but I use my old brushes for this. And this application of this brown tissue paper will make the sheet music trees go into kind of almost the midground, and then these larger trees with the brown tissue paper will become the foreground. And then the background is the original painting of the Misty Woods, which becomes just a beautiful backdrop for this collage. And here again I'm putting glue over the top of the brown tissue paper just to make sure that's all secured properly. And now I'm going to place some branches, putting the glue directly on the paper. And as you do this, you don't forget to pay attention to your composition and the shapes of the trees. Cutting a little bit more of the brown tissue paper. Sometimes I tear it, but sometimes it doesn't tear very well, so the scissors come in handy. And you'll see that I place the glue directly on the paper before laying that down. Adding a little bit more glue on top, just to make sure it's adhered. You have to let the collage dry overnight to make sure all the glue is dry. And now I'm going to go in with Payne's Gray, a mixture of Payne's Gray and sepia, and just hit the tops of those wrinkles in the tissue paper just to add some detail and shadows into those trees. And they're likely to be wet, so there's some darker color in there as well. I've also put some paint on the sheet music, and you can see that how I how I paint birch trees in another video. I'll place that in a comment below. And then putting in branches for both the birch trees and the oak trees if they are in the foreground, using a pretty heavy mixture of Payne's Gray and sepia, and going right over the trees in the background. And there again I'm using my mixture to hit the highlights of the tree and give it some depth and shadow. And so continue adding these branches in, and remembering what's in the foreground and what's in the background. That's very important. So I'm going behind that larger oak tree in the middle. Since this had already been painted and off the block of paper, you'll see I move it around, and that makes it easier for me to paint in the branches. I'll even turn it upside down to do that. It kind of shifts your brain into your artistic side. When painting these branches, to start off with, I was using a nice round brush with a nice point that you could make a thicker branch and then still have some, when you lift it at the end, you can have some finer branches. And then I moved to my rigger brush to put in the real fine branches. Now I'm pretty much happy with the amount of branches I have here in the foreground, and I'm going to move to the base of the trees, and I'm using a mixture of violet and Payne's Gray just to put in some shadows and ground brush in the foreground, just to hold these trees down in the foreground, going along the edge. Fairly hefty amount of Payne's Gray and violet, and you see they suddenly become grounded. And here is the finished watercolor collage. Very happy with the composition, and now with the depth that the collage is added to this painting. So I hope you enjoyed this, and please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Um, and I hope this has helped. Please leave me a comment below if you have any questions. Thanks a lot and have a great day.